am Jack B. Lee, a past master of Perfect Union Lodge number 10 in San Antonio. Today, at the 150th Grand Communication of the Grand Lodge of Texas, in our beautiful Masonic Temple in Waco, it is my privilege to introduce Right Worshipful Robert B. O'Connor, who was Grand Master of Masons in Texas in 1975. Brother Bob, it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you, Jack.
How about starting off by telling us something about your personal background, Bob?
Well, I was born and reared in San Antonio, Texas, attended the public schools there, attended San Antonio Junior College, and then the University of Texas School of Law, where I received my law degree in 1942. Upon graduation from law school, I entered the old Army Air Corps during World War II, and I went through pilot training, and I served 3 years and 8 months active duty. And upon returning from the service in January of 1946, I entered the private practice of law and practiced law for 34 years. And then in 1979, I was offered an appointment as federal magistrate to the United States District Court in San Antonio, and I accepted that appointment and have been serving as a federal magistrate since that time.
You have a family, haven't you, Bob?
Yes, I have a wife and 4 children.
And as federal magistrate, what are some of your duties as federal magistrate?
Well, a federal magistrate or the magistrate's court is an adjunct of the United States District Court. We have certain statutory jurisdiction, and then the district judge by individual order or by general order can refer certain types of cases to us for us to try. We have consensual jurisdiction if the parties consent to magistrate trial, and the appeal can go directly to the Fifth Circuit, or the parties can elect for the district court to review the decision of the magistrate, and we handle a number of pretrial matters for the district court at the discretion of the district judge.
In your personal life, aside from your legal profession, you were active in some civic projects, were you not? For instance, I believe that you have served in some official capacities in both your church and in your school district. Would you tell us something about that?
Well, I was very active in my church, particularly when my children were growing up. I served on the vestry 9 years of Trinity Episcopal Church in San Antonio. I was senior warden 3 years and held another number of other positions, one of which I was a licensed lay reader for many years.
And your work in the school district?
I was elected to the school board of Northeast School District in San Antonio, and I served 12 years on the board and 2 terms as president of that board.
In your legal profession, you have held some high offices, have you not? How about your position in the San Antonio Bar Association?
Well, I served as president of the San Antonio Bar Association after serving a number of terms on the board of directors and as secretary treasurer of the association. I then was elected to a director of the State Bar of Texas, and I served 3 years on that board, 1967 to 70.
Would you tell us something about your Masonic background, Bob?
Well, I'm a member of Anchor Lodge number 424 in San Antonio, Texas, and a dual member of Perfect Union Lodge number 10. I served as District Deputy Grand Master in 1957 of the 39th Masonic District, and I served as Master of Anchor Lodge in 1954 and 57, and then I was elected Grand Junior Warden and in due course advanced to Grand Master in 1975.
You were also active in Alciphar Shrine Temple, were you not?
Yes, I served on the die band from 1961 to 65, and I served as potentate in 1965.
And now you are still quite active in the Scottish Rite Valley of San Antonio in a very high capacity. Would you please tell us about that?
Yes, well, I took my Masonic degrees in the Scottish Rite in 1946. I served as presiding officer of all four bodies. I was then elected to receive the rank and designation of Knight Commander of the Court of Honor in 1957. In 1967, I was elected by the Supreme Council to be coronated a 33rd degree Inspector General Honorary.
And your present position?
I presently hold the position of Chairman of the Inspector General's Advisory Conference. The Advisory Conference can best be analyzed as a board of directors of a corporation. I serve as chairman of that board. It's a policy-making board of the Scottish Rite, which is the Valley of San Antonio with a geographical area from San Antonio down through the coastal bend, the Rio Grande Valley, and out west to Del Rio and those areas.
So you are still quite active in Freemasonry.
Yes, I am.
Bob, what initially attracted you to Freemasonry?
Well, my father was a Mason, and he always held the Masonic fraternity in very high regard. And he impressed upon me that Masonry required its members to reach a level of moral standard above the average man, and that ordinarily if a man was a Mason and if he lived his life in accordance with the principles and precepts of Masonry, that he was a man in whom you could place great confidence because he had a high sense of moral integrity and a sense of responsibility to his fellow man.
What sustains your interest in Masonry?
Well, I think the interest is rather progressive because Masonry teaches you various lessons, and it's sequential. Each time you progress further in Masonry, well, you are given more of the insight into the philosophical side of Masonry and the intangible values of life. And I think once a man becomes active, I think he becomes rather infected with it, because although it's idealistic, there are high ideals that if people, and particularly the men who belong to the fraternity, will live up to those ideals, they will live an exemplary life, and it will inure to their benefit and everybody around them.
I have heard you speak often of your friendships that you have made in Masonry over the years. Would you tell us something about what these friendships mean to you?
Well, Masonic friendships have a high quality to them and a lot of depth, because a Mason takes an obligation towards his brother Mason, and that gives Masonic brethren a tie that men outside of the fraternity don't usually have. Some of the finest men I have met in my life have been Masonic brethren. They've been leaders in the community, they've been leaders in public life, they've been leaders in the profession, and you find outstanding men among the blue-collar workers who are brethren, and you have a common bond. You have a common philosophy of life which inures to the benefit of the entire fraternity.
Would you say then that you have found that Masonic friendships cross all social, economic, and vocational bounds?
Absolutely. It's a universal fraternity, and theoretically there's no social caste system within the fraternity. One of the basic principles is that we meet upon the level and we part upon the square, and that one man is equal to the other man as far as his own personal integrity is concerned. And it certainly does cross all social and economic lines, and that's really the most wonderful thing about it. Not all men are capable of living up to it, and I rather doubt that any man has the capacity to live up to all of it all the time. But if he aspires to live up to the idealistic Mason, he certainly be a better man.
Let us turn to the year 1975. Take us back 10 years, Bob, and tell us what you consider to have been some of the accomplishments during 1975.
Well, I feel probably the most important thing that I was able to accomplish in 75 was to refine the regional conference concept that Grand Lodge has followed in education and visitation. I first heard of this idea from past Grand Master J. Carroll Hinesley, who was Grand Master in 65, who felt that a regional conference type of meeting was the ideal way for the Grand Master to make his visitations to get the greatest contact with the greatest number of Masons rather than going to small meetings and individual lodges. The idea then progressed, and Duncan Howard, 2 years ahead of me, recognized this, and so did Dan Jordan recognize it, who was Grand Master immediately preceding me. And we had been working on this together from the time I first was elected Grand Junior Warden. But it takes time to develop a program like this, and it probably reached its fruition in 1975. I had the benefit of the ideas of Carroll Hinesley and Dan Jordan and Duncan Howard, and to some extent Jack Hightower. And I put this together, and I think it became probably more refined in 75 than it had before, just as it is more sophisticated and effective today, because the regional conference concept has continued as an educational and fellowship type of program of the Grand Lodge. The idea is that there are many Masons, because of their work or other reasons, never will come to a Grand Lodge meeting, and they only read about the Grand Officers. This way the Grand Officers go out into the various parts of the state, and the brethren within a radius of about 100 miles will come to a meeting, usually on Saturday. And we will have speakers and question and answer programs, training programs, audio video tapes, and I think it's worked very well, and I think it's probably working better now than ever before.
Did you have any problems during 1975, problems that you might be able to share with us?
Well, I think the perennial problem for the Masonic fraternity since about 1960 is a loss of membership. For example, the state of Texas has probably tripled in population since the end of World War II, but our membership has not tripled. We have shrunk from about 240,000 to around 200,000, and there doesn't seem to be the same interest in Masonry as there was 50 to 75 years ago. I think there's a good reason for that, because we have more people now. Life is more impersonal. We have a more mobile society. We have a more materialistic society. And it's been my experience that in times of affluence, people are not as interested in the intangible values or the philosophical concepts. They become very materialistic. People today are now people. They want things right now, and they want the same things their parents had after 30 years of work and sacrifice. Also, the television is quite a distracting thing. Many sporting events that people go to, that's a short-term fun type thing, and then they move on to something else. But the television, for the most part, has a 30-minute program, and they present a problem or a goal to reach at the beginning, and they resolve it in 30 minutes and go on to something else. Well, life really isn't like that. But this idea or concept or attitude about life has so permeated our society. We also have a much more permissive morality than we had 50 to 75 years, and Masonry predicates its philosophy on morality. And morality is not the desired goal for the rank and file of society today that it was 75 or 100 years ago, and I think that's what's happened to Masonry. But that very thing gives Masonry its greatest challenge, because what we try to teach people, that it is the internal qualifications of a man rather than his financial statement or his public achievements or his business achievements that really qualifies a man for whatever he is, his character, the image that he projects. So the problem is also a challenge, and I think Masonry just needs to work harder at trying to meet that challenge and turn this attitude around to where the intangible values are the things that people put foremost in their mind.
Did you have any unfinished business in 1975? Putting it another way, if you could have extended your term of office another year, or if you could be Grand Master again, is there something you would like to finish that you didn't quite see to completion?
Well, I don't think that anybody ever can do all that he wants to do in just 1 year. The year goes by rather rapidly. But I'm a believer that progress is sequential, and that each generation stands upon the shoulders of its predecessors. We today are very sophisticated in technological things, but if it hadn't been for the man that invented the wheel,